Okay, so let's start. Hello, I am Mansi Bhatia and I'm part of the communications department in Virtual Vet Society. And today I am representing BMS. We are a student-led organization helping medical students. Today we bring our third webinar of the year, hosted by Vardhan, who just graduated from class of 2021 from Indian High School, and a top 10 decile UCAT scorer. He is also admitted to the University of Birmingham. This webinar is all about the tips and tricks to improve your UCAT score. Coming back to VMS, I want to point out some things we offer as an organization. We provide monthly newsletters with medical ethics, university information, and exclusive doctor interviews. We offer webinars and virtual job shadowing courses. We also recently started our very own YouTube channel where recordings of webinar will be put. All our information can be found on our Instagram page, and you can access all of our content by signing up to become a member. Also, we have a webinar coming up on the 5th of August. I'll just show you the poster. So we have a situational judgment webinar coming up 5th of August 2021 at 5 p.m., which is GST. I will be sending you the link to register for this particular webinar. And I will also be posting the links to our socials so you can stay up to date with all our events. Remember that during the webinar, if you have any questions at all, just pop it into the Q&A section and Vardhan will be answering them at the end. Thank you, and over to you, Vardhan.
All right, so hello everybody. I'm Vardhan. I am present. I just graduated from school, from IHS Indian High School, grade 12, and I will be going as Mansi introduced me. So I'll be taking the webinar today on how you can crack the UCAT and get a score as I did. So I'll just say it right off the bat. I got a main score in the UCAT of 2980, which if you don't know is it is in the top 10 decile. So I'll be trying to guide you all into how you can also like get a similar score, at least a very good score, which can guarantee you the 4 out of 4 interviews that I got. So without further ado, let's begin with the webinar. So what I'll first begin by talking about what is the UCAT. So in the UK, you have like somewhere about 30 medical schools. Most of them use the UCAT exam for entrance. I think only about 7 or so use there's another entrance exam as well, which is called the BMAT, and only 7 universities use that. So if I remember correctly, schools like Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial College London, University College London, these places use the BMAT, but otherwise, the vast majority of medical schools in the UK, they use the UCAT exam. And the exam itself is comprised of 4 sections, which are verbal reasoning, decision making, quantitative reasoning, abstract reasoning, plus the situational judgment. And today in this webinar, I'll be covering the first 4 sections. The situational judgment will be covered in a different webinar, as Mansi had just said. So basically, the UCAT as a whole is graded out of a score of 3,600, and the situational judgment part is graded between band 1 to band 4, with band 1 being the highest and band 4 being the lowest. As far as the main component of the test is concerned, each section, each of these 4 sections which I mentioned, they can be graded on a score from 300 to 900, with 900 being the highest, 300 being the lowest, as is obvious. So since the lowest score that you can get in each section is 300, your minimum score will be 1,200, doing 300 into 4. But the most general range of scores that people get on the UCAT is, as I mentioned over here, 2,400 to 2,800. The UCAT exam, you might say you might try and compare it to the NEET exam that we have in India, but in some ways that comparison is correct, but in many ways it is quite wrong. So so I'll be talking a little bit about the NEET. So the NEET is like, it's a subject-based exam kind of thing where you're answering questions from physics, chemistry, and biology. But the UCAT is not like that. UCAT is more, it measures your aptitude more broadly than your knowledge. So what the UK university says that we are already looking at your your class 12 final marks in order to gauge your academic skills. Why do we need another entrance exam to like gauge your academic skills? So instead of gauging your academic skills with an entrance exam, they're gauging your aptitude. They're trying to gauge whether you are fit to be a doctor. All right, and that's what each of these sections of the UCAT is catered to observe, like whether you as a person are have the skills and the necessary aptitude to become a doctor. So some important dates I've given over here for the UCAT. You can go and register on the site ucat.ac.uk. I'll type it over here. In this website, you can go and register for the UCAT exam. Registrations and bookings have already opened for the UCAT exam, and bookings will be closing on the 22nd of September 2021. So if you're going to write it this year, please do go ahead and register right away as soon as possible so that you can get the date that you want, and the slot is free. As I've written, the UCAT can be sat on any day between the 26th of July and the 29th of September. So like I said, the exam has already begun happening. Some people have already written the exam. Okay, you can register for it in any day between these on any date between these two in this range, and you can sit it at any one of the Pearson VUE test centers. So there's plenty of those around Dubai. I personally wrote my UCAT center next to Berjuman here in Karama. Also, book some types about the booking process. Just book the test on a date where you are free and do not have any like major commitments, don't have any major commitments close by. So what I did when I booked my UCAT was that I booked it in the middle of August, which was in the middle of my summer vacation last year. So I had no stress, no stress at all when I was writing the exam. Like all of my school exams are at least 1 month away, and so I could go with a calm and peaceful mind, and I could go and write the exam. That is a major component if you want to score well. So if you're booking the test, book it on a date when you don't have anything stressful coming up for at least the next 2 to 3 weeks at least. Okay. Some other people, what they did, some other people in my school, the Indian school, what they did, since we were supposed to have an exam around the first or second week of September, what they did, they went and wrote the UCAT in the 3rd or 4th week of September. So you can do that, but then by that time you might be having some schoolwork and things like that to do. So if you want to avoid that, the best time I would recommend is in the middle of August. It's best that you book the test as early as possible so that like you can get the date that you want. Moving forward, so these are each of the sections and the time limit that you get for each of them. The number of questions in each section is not mentioned over here, but I will be telling it. So in verbal reasoning, you have 44 questions. Note this down if you want to. It's also there in the UCAT website, but you can note this down as well. So the verbal reasoning section has 44 questions which you must answer in 21 minutes. Plus 1 minute of reading, but in this reading time, you cannot answer any of the questions. It's just to read the instructions for the section. So you cannot go ahead and answer the question this time. So you have roughly 28 seconds per item over here. Quantitative reasoning, which is in fact, the third section. I don't know why it's given second over here. You get 36 questions over there and you have 24 minutes. So you have roughly 40 seconds per item doing like division. And again, everywhere over here, you see plus 1 minute of reading. This reading is for reading the instructions that they give in the beginning of each section. So you can take 1 minute to like read those instructions before you move on to the actual questions. Okay. Now, abstract reasoning, which arguably is the hardest part of the UCAT. You have 55 questions, if I remember correctly. You have 55 questions and you have only 13 minutes to answer them. So you get only 14 seconds to answer each question in abstract reasoning. So since you get so little time per question, it's like arguably this is the hardest part in the entire thing. Next off, we come to decision making. It's given 32 minutes over here. In reality, you get only 31 minutes plus 1 minute of reading for 29 questions. So you have 29 questions and you have 31 minutes to answer the questions. So you get roughly around 66 seconds per question to answer each question. All right. So moving forward, the other situational judgment part, which has 69 questions. And I had 26 minutes to answer that. So you have roughly 23 seconds per item. Situational judgment, you may think this is a little less time, but believe me, it is quite adequate. You do have a ton of breathing space in the situational judgment part. One piece of advice that I would like to give over here is that spend if any particular section goes a little bad for you in the UCAT, spend this 1 minute time that you get in order to compose yourself. Maybe drink some water. You can go and get some water as well in the test center. That is no problem. go get some water, regain your composure, and then begin with the next section of the test, so that you don't carry the guilt from the previous section along with you. This happened with me as well. So I'll tell you what went wrong with mine. Actually, I had a few problems during my test. So I used this 1 minute of time quite effectively, which helped me do much better in all the other sections of the test. All right. So I'll be going ahead to the actual test components right now. So first off, we have verbal listening, which is the first section of the UCAT. So as I've written over here, my language is verbal reasoning, as I would like to describe it, is basically passage comprehension on steroids. Okay. So if any of, I don't know about other curriculums, but in CBSE schools, what we used to have in English is that the first section used to be a reading section, and that was just a pure passage comprehension. Verbal reasoning is basically that, but on steroids. Why do I say it's on steroids? Because in your English exams in school, you used to have 3 hours for writing the entire exam. Here, for answering 44 questions, you only get 21 minutes. So like, you get far lesser time over here. The passages are actually somewhat longer as well over here. So that's why I say it's like passage comprehension as you get in CBSE, but it's on steroids. Okay. And in verbal reasoning, there are mainly 2 types of questions. You get true, false, can't tell. And there's also another type, which is choose one of the options which you feel is the most appropriate. I will be showing you examples of both of these question types in this PPT. So some pieces of advice right now about verbal listening. Okay, the passages that you get in verbal listening, they're actually quite big. Okay, so I will be citing a few sites that I use in the end. So one site which I would highly recommend is that, and the one which I use mainly is Medify. Okay, the problem with Medify is that in verbal reasoning, the passages that they give over there are too short. In the real UCAT, the passages that you get in verbal reasoning, they're very long. All right. So you got to, you might end up spending a lot of time if you keep on, like if you try to read and understand the passage. My advice for you is don't do that. Don't try to read that passage in depth, because you're going to be undoubtedly wasting time. Okay. So remember when I mentioned you have 44 questions. It's more like you have 11 passages, and from each passage you get 4 questions. All right. So each passage gives you 4 questions. All right. And it's best that you don't read the passage in depth. You're supposed to look out for keywords that are there in your question, and you're supposed to scan your paragraph for those keywords. All right. I will be showing you an example of what do you do over here in the upcoming example questions that I've got over here. And another important piece of advice is for verbal listening, especially in the true, false, can't tell type of questions. Learn the difference between false and can't tell. All right. So in CBSE exams, what we get is that in the passage comprehension, we get like several questions which you have another option is I don't know. And if you select that option in the exam, that's a guaranteed way of you losing marks. Okay, but that's not how the UCAT works. The UCAT is completely different. Okay, in the UCAT, if you select can't tell, that can't tell legitimately a lot of the times is the correct answer. So how do you know whether an answer is can't tell or whether it's false? There's a very simple way to tell. Okay, if the statement given in the question is explicitly stated in the paragraph, if it is clearly stated in the paragraph, then you go ahead and select true. And if the statement of the question is explicitly contradicted in the paragraph, then you go ahead and select false. If the passage is a little vague on the question that is given to you, on the statement that is given to you, then you go ahead and select can't tell. You don't select false in that case. Okay. For example, you can say the passage is talking about British involvement in World War II. How the British were involved in landing in. So let's take the example of D-Day. Okay, in D-Day there were 5 beaches, and the British were involved in 2 of them. Okay, so let's go ahead and say the passage talks about. You do get a lot of passages about history, by the way, in the verbal reasoning section. So you will have stuff about this. You don't need any background knowledge. I'm letting you know this. Okay, all the information that you need, you must take it from the paragraph. You're not supposed to use any of the background information that you've got on this. Okay, so if one of the statements in the thing says that Britain landed on 2 beaches, but this is not stated exactly in the paragraph, then you should go ahead and select can't tell. Even though it is actually true in real life, since it is not stated in the paragraph, you're not supposed to write true. You're supposed to write can't tell. Okay, so I'll be giving you an example of this in the upcoming questions. 1 second. Give me 1 second.
Also, if any of you have any questions, feel free to pop it in the Q&A box. Vardhan will be answering them at the end.
Yeah. All right. I hope everyone can see the screen. So this is the first type, second type of question that I mentioned, which is like answer, choose one of the following options. Okay. So you have a paragraph over here, which is talking about secrets of warfare and dummy military props. Okay. So you have 4 options over here. Now Mansi will be launching a poll. Okay, there you guys will get 30 seconds to go ahead and choose the option that you feel is correct. Okay, and then you must select it and submit the answer. In the end, we'll be seeing what each of you thinks is the most appropriate answer, and then I'll be showing you what the correct answer is, and I'll also be explaining the answer. All right, Mansi, can you go ahead and launch the first poll? ABC.
Yeah, I'll be launching the poll now.
You have 30 seconds to answer this question, by the way. Oh, all right, time's up. Mansi, can you close the poll? All right. So let's see what each of you thought about the answer for this question. Can you show the results? All right. So 88% of you thought the answer is C. 6% of you thought the answer was B and D respectively. So I'll be explaining the question right now. So the question is, dummy airfields were established too. Okay. So what is given over here is that dummy towns have also been set up on open land to be fired up once a real attack began on a city. Okay, so the question is about dummy airfields, right? So we're going to be scanning the passage for statements about dummy airfields. So look at the third paragraph. It's talking about usually in large fields, barren land, or disused aerodromes. From the air at night, these dummy airfields look like runaway flare paths. Often a bar of red lights is placed along this flare path to prevent aircraft running from bombing enemy targets attempting to land, perhaps with fatal consequences. So this doesn't have anything to say about this part. Okay. So there's also stuff about stuff in the second paragraph with these decoy and dummy airfields and towns aim to confuse enemy bombers, divert dangers from real airfields and real aircraft, as well as saving the lives of the home population. So it is stating over here that it is to confuse enemy bombers. Now, which one of these options has that statement? Confuse enemy bombers. That's option C. So if you look at the answer to this question, the correct answer is C. So 88% of you are correct. The correct answer for this question is C, right? So what are you going to do in these kinds of questions is, right, you have approximately 2 minutes per passage, okay? Per passage, and for the 4 questions surrounding each passage, you have like 2 minutes. So what I would suggest you do is that you spend the first 45 seconds or something reading the passage, skimming quickly through the passage, and then you spend the remaining 1 minute 15 seconds answering each of the 4 questions. And for those, you just quickly skim through the passage and find out the keywords, and then move on to the next question. All right. Now, one problem that I must say I face in the PR's verbal reasoning section is that I had prepared too much using Medify. Okay. So that's one lesson you're supposed to learn. You're not supposed to over-rely too much on one thing. Okay. As a result, in Medify, most of the passages that come in verbal reasoning get too short compared to what you get in the real UCAT. In the real UCAT, the passages are quite long. Okay. So as a result, I was somewhat unprepared for the long passages that I got in the real UCAT. Okay, and I had a serious shortage of time during the actual exam. Okay. Someone's asking my individual score. My individual score in the verbal reasoning section was only a 630 out of 900. As I said, it was because It is because I didn't manage my time properly. I was too accustomed to reading shorter passages. I wasn't really expecting longer passages. Okay. So a piece of advice I would like to give you for the verbal reasoning section is that use a blend between Medify and the actual UCAT website. So the UCAT website has plenty of practice resources as well, which you can use. It's there on their website. So you can go to ucat.ac.uk, the website which I've sent, and then you can find it over there. Okay. Going forward to the next question. So this is the next type of question, which is a true false can't tell type. So I was talking about art funds and museums. The statement over here is the annual income after necessary expenses of the art fund is found 4 million per year. Now, based on the information which I've given you, Mansi will be launching a poll with these three options. Okay, you'll be again having 30 seconds to answer these questions. Okay, at the end of which we'll be seeing your answers. Okay, Mansi, could you bring up the poll?
Yeah, the poll.
All right, your 30 seconds begin now. And time's up. Yeah, once again, close the poll. Yeah, now let's see what you guys thought of this. Okay, so this one's pretty evenly split. 18% of you thought the answer is true, 36% thought the answer was false, and 45% chose can't tell, which is the majority option. All right. So let's see the statement over here. Can you close the poll? Okay. Let's see the statement over here. The annual income after necessary expenses of the art fund is found 4 million per year. Okay. So let's see where it talks about income. The first paragraph has nothing as far as income is concerned. So what you have to do here, basically you have to skim quickly through the paragraph as quickly as possible. Okay, the third paragraph talks about in 2007 the art fund committed £5 million to an ambitious new scheme to encourage. Okay, this doesn't have anything about income though. So the next paragraph talks about the original founders condemned inadequate government funding for the arts, fearing that without government support, many great works will be lost to the nation. The concern is just as real today. Between 1997 and 2007, government source acquisition money for Britain's 5 major museums fell by more 90%. Each year, the art fund makes grants of £4 million. More than 600 museums and galleries benefit. Okay, so the art fund makes grants of £4 million does not necessarily mean that its income is £4 million. Okay, so there's nothing here that talks about £4 million being the income of the art fund. So I would go ahead and say that the answer over here is can't tell. Okay, let's go and see what the actual answer is. The answer is C, can't tell. Okay, this is because we know the art fund makes grants of £4 million, but there is no information on the actual expenses. So going back to what I said about CBC over here, in CBC, if you choose false over here, right, that is perfectly fine because that's how like the English exams in CBSE work. But in the UK, that's not how things work. Okay, what you're doing over here is if the statement is not explicitly confirmed or denied in the paragraph, you're supposed to go ahead and choose can't tell. Okay, more often than not, can't tell is the correct answer for these questions. Okay, just keep that in your mind when you're answering the questions. So going ahead. So the next section, that is decision making. So decision making as a section, it examines your ability to see the information that's given to you, infer what you need from it, and make decisions based on what you have seen. Okay. So for example, I'm driving a car. Okay, and all of a sudden a cat like runs on the road. I have to see the cat. I have to take a decision that the cat's running on the road, and I must take the decision to just floor the brakes so that I don't run over the cat or something. Okay, so decision making is quite similar to that. You're given a bunch of information. You're supposed to make your inferences based on that, and then you're supposed to answer the question that they give you. Okay, in this, principally, mainly, okay, you're going to have two types of questions. You have like 29 questions in 31 minutes in the main section. there is a little bit of breathing space. You get like about 1 minute per question, with a little more than 1 minute per question. So there is a little bit of breathing space, but it's not much. You will need it for a lot of the questions. You will need a lot of time to answer them. So there's not too much breathing space. Maybe you can just like relax a little bit. Okay. Sorry. So principally in the decision making section, you have two types of questions. You have MCQs and you have fill in the boxes. MCQs can vary. Maybe you're given a bunch of information and like you have to make inferences based on that information, or you can have Venn diagram type of questions. Okay. So those are the two main types of questions that you have over here. For decision making, one piece of advice that you should know is that you must brush up your basic math skills, especially Venn diagrams and the like. Okay. So in CBSE in class 11th, we learned set theory, if I remember correctly. So set theory, I'm not sure when it was taught in other curriculums and the like, but you must keep your knowledge of set theory fresh in order to know how to use Venn diagrams and like how to make sense of Venn diagrams, basically. Okay. And if sometimes the information that they give in questions and decision making, it can be quite confusing. So in such cases, okay, what they do in the actual UCAT exam is that they give you a sheet, a laminated paper board kind of sheet, okay, and a marker pen, which you can use to like note down whatever questions or anything, any points anything that you want to remember, you can note it down on that sheet, and then like you can use it when you're actually answering the questions. Okay, so I would suggest that if a question is difficult, don't hesitate to use that sheet. Okay, go ahead and just like you get like plenty of pages in that sheet, so that's not a problem. Okay, so you can go ahead and use that. Last year they had a service for online proctored examinations where instead of going to the center and writing the exam, you could like write it from your house. I'm not sure that same facility is there this year, but in that case they had some different like you could use a pen or a paper or something. I don't remember exactly what the procedure was for online proctored exam last year, because I went to the center and wrote the exam, and in the centers they'll give you a marker pen and a laminated sheet where you can note down anything that you want to note down. Okay. Lastly, one other main piece of advice that I would mention, that I can mention over here, understand the use of words like must or might. Okay, for example, in questions, if they use the word must, it implies certainty. Okay, for example, if I say Jaden must go to school by 9 a.m. every day, that means he should certainly be at school by 9 a.m. every day. Okay. Whereas John might take the car today, means that he may take the car, he might not take the car. It is possible that he can take his car today. Okay, so you must understand the use. So like words like might imply that it is possible, whereas words like must imply that it is a certainty. It will happen, or it has happened. It will happen. That's what must imply. Okay? So you must understand the wordplay that is done over here. Okay. So moving forward, these are the 6 main question types that you get in decision making. Okay, you have logical puzzles, syllogisms, interpreting information and drawing conclusions, recognizing assumptions, Venn diagrams, and probabilistic and statistical reasoning. Okay, these are the main question types that you get over here. So this is your first question. Okay, for this one, I couldn't find a way where I could get people to answer the question over here. Okay, so we'll be doing. I'll be like answering. You guys can type it in the chat, I guess, maybe. Type it in the chat box towards all panelists and attendees. Type it in the order that you think is the most correct. Okay. All right. So let's read the question. Employees are promoted on the strength of their performance rating. A company rates all its employees between 1 and 4 for their bonus allocation. 1 is the highest, 4 is the lowest. Employees are eligible for promotion after 3 years of service in the same position. All employees and those eligible for promotion must getting a rating of 1 or 2 for a bonus payment. Okay, so this is the information that is given to you. If you find this confusing, do note this down. Do note this information down in the laminated sheet that they give you. But let's make a basic flowchart kind of thing over here. Okay, let's make a basic flowchart over here. Diana, let's like go the questions one by one. Diana got a rating of 4 this year, so she will not receive a bonus payment. Now, what is stated in the last statement is that all employees and those eligible for promotion must get a rating of 1 or 2 for a bonus payment. Diana has got a rating of 4 this year. Okay, so since she's not getting a rating of 1 or 2, it's pretty sure that she's not going to get a bonus payment. So the answer for this one would be yes. Okay. The next question is Brian was promoted 3 years ago, so it is definite that he will be promoted this year. Now we cannot say for sure. Okay, he is eligible for a promotion because he served 3 years in the same position, but it is not definite that he'll get promoted. We don't know like are there any of the other factors that are coming into play here. So we can go ahead and put a no for the second option. All right. So far we have a yes and we have a no. Okay. The third one is that Roger was promoted 5 years ago. He received a bonus this year. He did not get a 3 rating this year. Okay. So said that he received a bonus, and it is stated in the question that all employees and those responsible for a promotion must get a rating of 1 or 2 for a bonus payment. Since he got a bonus payment, he must not have gotten a rating of 3, because if he had gotten a rating of 3, he would not have gotten the bonus payment. So we can go ahead and put a yes. The third one is what I feel over here. Okay. Now so far we have a yes, no, yes. The fourth statement is Salim got a promotion after working for 2 years, so he cannot be working for this company. Now in this particular company, we can see that employees are only eligible for promotion after they serve 3 years in the same position. Here Salim has not served 3 years in the same position, but he has still gotten a promotion. He's only served 2 years. So as a result, we can say pretty sure that he's not serving in this company. So we can go ahead and say that the answer of the fourth statement is also a yes. He cannot be working for this company, because if he were, then he would not have gotten a promotion, because he's not been working for 3 years in the same position. Now, looking at the keywords that I mentioned before, you see this statement over here. It says all employees and those who are eligible for promotion must get a promotion rating. This must is a keyword over here. Okay, this keyword is what you use to answer this second question. The first question, the third one. This is what you use to answer these two questions. Okay, so that's why you should know the difference between a must and a might. All right, and that's one major thing. The last statement: the employees of companies that they let me go ahead and do one thing. Okay, so what I said was. This is a yes. Okay, this is a no. This is a yes. This is a yes. Okay, and the last one, the number of employees at the company who receive a promotion each year is higher than the number of employees that do not receive a promotion. So about this, we cannot say for sure. Okay, maybe that can be true, maybe that cannot be true. We don't know. No information on this is really given in the passage that is given over here. Like maybe. Maybe there's like more people who are like serving under 3 years. Maybe like people leave every 2 years or something. We don't know for sure. So like for this question, for this last statement, I'm pretty sure you can go ahead and say no. All right. Now let's see what the answer key says. What is the actual answer for this question? Okay. So what we have decided so far is yes, yes, yeah, yes, no, yes, yes, no. Okay. Now what the actual answer is? Does follow. So does follow means the answer is a yes. So 1 is a yes, 2 is a no, 3 is a yes, 4 is a yes, and 5 is a no. Okay, so what I said was 100% correct. So what we do over here is that we follow the statements that are given in the question, and based on that we arrive at conclusions, and based on that we arrive at the answers. Okay, so if you go through the same systematic process that I did, okay, you too can get like a full 5 on 5 correct in these kinds of questions. So some of you were asking for my individual section by score. So in the decision making section, I got an 800 out of 900. Okay, that's a very good score as far as the UCAT is concerned. Okay, so I'll be clearing my markings right now. If any of you have any questions about this, do go ahead and like go fire ahead in the Q&A section. Towards the end, I'll be answering all your questions. Okay, and now going on to the next question. 5 tools. Okay, this is another decision making sector question, but this is an MCQ question. This is not like that yes, no, yes, that not that. Okay, so let's so I'll be giving you 1 minute to answer this question. Okay, Mansi, can you bring up the poll for ABCD? So for this we have a poll, so you people can go ahead and answer this question. I'll be giving you 1 minute for this, and your time starts. Wait, give me a second. Your time starts now. The time starts now. You have 1 minute. Can everyone see the share screen, or is it not visible?
I think it's visible.
Yeah, 10 seconds left. And your time's up. Hands up. Close the poll. All right, give me a second. So 43% of you chose D, 29% chose C, 29% chose B. So now let's go ahead and analyze the question, and I'll be answering this as well. I'll be giving my answer. 5 tourists from different countries: China, Italy, Germany, France, and America. 4 shirts and hats of different colors: blue, green, brown, yellow, and red. Okay, this is the information that's given to you. No 2 tourists wore hats and shirts of the same color. So they were all wearing like different colored shirts and different colored hats. Okay. The French tourist wore a green shirt. Her hat was neither red nor blue. Okay. So let's make a small flow chart over here. I'll be marking French as F. Okay. So F was wearing a green shirt. Green shirt. Forgive my handwriting, please. Green shirt. Okay. And her cap was neither her hat was neither red nor blue. Okay, if it is neither red nor blue, it can be it's not red nor blue, and it can't be green either, because they didn't wear hats and shirts of the same color. So it's neither red nor blue nor green. So it is either the French tourist either wore yellow or brown. White/brown this thing hat. All right. So this is one crucial piece of information. Okay. The American tourist wore a red shirt. American tourist wore a red shirt. Please forgive my handwriting. Okay, I know it's terrible. So this is one piece of information that they have given. And the Italian tourist wore a brown hat. So we can say for sure that this is no red shirt. No red shirt. No red hat, sorry, no red hat. No red hat. Okay. And the Italian tourist wore a brown hat. Italian wore a brown hat. And it's also given that the color of her shirt was the same as the color of the French tourist hat. So the French tourist wore either yellow or a brown colored hat. Okay. So since we can say that the Italian won't be wearing a brown colored hat because they don't wear a shirt and the hat of the same color. Since the Italian is wearing a brown hat, no, since the Italian is having a brown shirt, she won't be having a brown. No, my God, sorry. Since the Italian is wearing a brown hat, she won't have a brown shirt as well. Okay, so we can pretty much eliminate her having a brown shirt. So the Italian has a yellow shirt. Okay, and the French person has a yellow hat. So let's look at the options over here. The Italian tourist wore a red shirt. This can be eliminated. It must be yellow. The American tourist wore a red hat. This is confirmed wrong. So A is wrong, B is confirmed wrong. Okay. The American tourist wore a yellow hat. This is possible. Okay. The Chinese tourist wore a blue or a brown shirt. Okay. Since now over here, red is eliminated, green is eliminated, brown is eliminated. So you have so the Chinese tourist could not have worn a brown shirt. Wait. This one's a little bit confusing, okay? The American wearing a yellow hat is possible, since the only condition for the American is that she should not have worn a red hat. That is given over here. Okay. So I'm guessing the answer over here should be C. Okay. I'm guessing the answer over here should be C, or can be D as well. A and B are eliminated for sure. So let's go ahead and see what the actual answer is. Okay. Over here, even I'm not sure. Let's go and see what the answer is. The correct answer is D. Okay, so D is correct because the French tourist wore a green shirt and the Italian wore a yellow shirt and the American wore a red shirt. Let's go check the question again. The Italian wore a yellow shirt. So we had already inferred that the Italian had worn a yellow shirt, as I had said over here. Okay, because he could not have worn a brown shirt because he already has a brown hat. So the Italian wore a yellow shirt. Okay, the Italian wore a yellow shirt and the American wore a what? 1 second. And the Italian wore a yellow shirt and the American wore a red shirt. Okay, the American wearing a red shirt, we have already, it is already given. The French wore a green shirt and the Italian wore a brown shirt. A yellow shirt. So the Chinese tourists could have worn either a brown or a blue shirt. So that's why option D is correct. Okay? So what you're gonna do over here basically is that you're gonna go through an order of inferences. You're gonna look at all the information that's given to you, and based on that, you're gonna infer what do you think is correct. Okay. So over here the answer is D. If any of you have any doubts, like do go ahead and ask them in the end. All right, I'll be moving on to the next section now. Okay, so the next section. Sorry, another question. This is a Venn diagram type of question. Okay, so the figure over here shows the different varieties of baby food available in the supermarket. How many products contain both apple and rice, but not wheat? For this question is somewhat simple. So I'll be giving you 45 seconds to answer this, and your time starts. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. Your time starts. Your time starts now. Yeah. Can you open the poll once? Yeah. And time's up. Okay. So over here, the majority if you chose D, 64% to be exact. 9% chose C and 27% chose B. All right. So let's see what the actual correct answers. The question is, how many products contain apple and rice but not wheat? Apple is the this shape over here. I don't know what you can call it, and rice is the triangle. Okay. So we are looking for products that contain that are overlapping, that contain the overlapping of the triangle and this weird shape, but not in this. Okay, does not contain wheat. So the square does not contain wheat. So we are looking for the shapes that have an overlap between all of these three shapes. All right. So the areas which have an overlap between the triangle, this weird shape over here, I don't know what you can call it, and the square. So the regions which have an overlap of all three are these two places, which I can notice right away. There's this place here. I don't think it's visible. I'll do a different color. All right. So this place is it's an overlap between all the three. Okay, and this one as well. This one is also an overlap. Now see, these kinds of went. Now if you add 18 in one, you get 19, and hence D would be the answer. Okay. Now what's the actual answer? Let's find out. And the answer is D, as most of you had guessed. Now here I come to the importance of Venn diagrams. Okay, we all learn this in maths in our school. It's important that you brush up on your concept of Venn diagrams, what Venn diagrams are, how you can read Venn diagrams. Okay, this question is technically quite easy. Okay, if I'm pretty sure all of you could have gotten it correct, like just revise your concepts of Venn diagrams and like set theory specifically. Okay, so that you know, because these kinds of questions are actually very common in decision making. So you should be prepared for them. All right. So going on to the third section, that is quantitative reasoning, I will be speeding things up a little bit over here because we are running a little bit short of time. Okay. So quantitative reasoning, 24 questions, 36 minutes. You have approximately 40 seconds per question. It's quantitative reasoning. The easiness of this section depends entirely on the person. Okay. So for me personally, maths was always a strong point for me. I used to hate maths from a very young age, but for some reason I was very strong in the subject. I don't know what kind of paradoxical situation is that, but that's just me. Okay. So for me, quantitative reasoning was personally one of the easiest sections, even though there was very little time. Okay. But some pieces of advice that I would like to give you here. Okay. Quantitative reasoning is full of simple mathematics. You don't need to think that, oh my God, I didn't take maths in my 11th grade, in my year 12 or my year 11, or in my 11th grade, I didn't take maths. Oh my God, am I screwed in this section? You don't need to think like that at all. Okay. Because see, maths that comes in the quantitative reasoning, it doesn't have any of that complex stuff involving integration, differentiation, calculus, none of that complicated stuff. Okay. It only includes simple stuff, but mainly like multiplication, division, it's only the simple stuff. The problem comes is that why the problem comes over here is because it's very tedious. It's not like you can do it in like 1 second and like you're done with the question. That's not how it works in QR. You know, if you're going to do quite complicated mathematics. And that's one reason why I would say is that you have to brush up your mental math skills. What I've noticed is that in CBSE schools, okay, what we used to do is that we never used a calculator from a very young age. Okay, so I personally have never used calculators at all in my school life. As a result, like our mental math skills are quite strong. But if you go to a school where using calculators is allowed, what I would suggest is that you please work on brushing up your mental math skills so that you don't need to keep relying on the calculator every time you have a question. Okay, so that you can like calculate the answers on your own without like opening the calculator, typing in the numbers, because there is you can't take an external calculator into the exam hall. And the calculator that they offer in the exam, like it's a inbuilt calculator in the PSLU site. That calculator is a bit tedious to use. It's a very simple calculator. It doesn't have like any of the more complicated functions. For example, if you need to calculate square roots and the like, it's best that you learn the mental math formula for calculating square roots, because as far as I remember, there isn't a function for square root in that calculator in the PSLU calculator. Okay, so if any of you want me to explain how do you find square roots in mentally, you guys can like go and fire ahead in the Q&A section. If there is time towards the end, I will go ahead and I will explain how we can do square roots. Okay, mentally, that is. Another point is some of the questions can get very frustrating in QR. Okay, I have personally experienced this. Some of the questions are extremely complicated. They're extremely hard. You have to spend too much time and effort in doing them, and they're too tedious. Okay. When you find such a question, right, don't do it. Just don't do it, because every question in a particular section is marked equally. Okay, it's not like the harder questions are going to be marked any higher than the questions that are easy. Okay, so if you find a question that's too hard, too tedious, too lengthy, just mark for review, select a random answer, and move on to the next question. Okay, just do that. Okay, and perhaps the next question will be easier. So that's what you're supposed to go ahead and do over here. You're not supposed to waste your time on any particular question, because each question is worth the same amount of marks, but their difficulty level varies. So over here, I'll tell what I scored in this section. In this section, my personal score was 800 out of 900. Again, same as decision. Okay? So it's again a very good score as far as the UCAT is concerned. So moving ahead, I'll be showing you guys a bunch of questions from the I'll be showing you how to do like a bunch of questions. And oh yeah, and this quick tips on 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication. If you want to be quick in the UCAT, it's essential that you know how to do this. Okay. So there's a very basic method you can do this. Okay. So I'll be doing this 53. I'm just taking a random number over here. Okay, 53 times say. Oh, sorry, wait. I got. Sorry. 53 times say 47. Okay. These are just two random numbers. You can get and they won't ask you questions like this. It's mainly word problems in the actual UCAT. The actual UCAT for QR is word problems. If you will need to do 2-digit by 2-digit multiplications for these word problems. So here's a simple yet quick method you can do to calculate the answers for these questions. Okay. One important thing is that you must also brush up on your tables. 1 to 9. Okay, you must brush up on your tables. Okay. If you brush up on your tables, then doing this is extremely easy. Okay. So let me start. 3 7s and 21. So like I write a 1 over here. We take the 2 up. Okay, 4 3s are 12, 5 7s are 35. So we add 35 and 12, we get 47. And we add the 2 here, we get a 49. Okay. And we add the 4 over here, we carry forward the 4 in the 49 up here. So 5 times 4 is 20, 20 plus 4 is 24. So your answer is 2491. Okay, this is your final answer over here. So if you see here, I did the entire sum in like less than like 10 seconds. So if you can do it quickly, I can explain this method one more time. You guys can ask it in the chat box if you want me to explain this method once again. Okay, but if you do this method, you can solve these 2-digit by 2-digit multiplications very easily. Okay, so that way like you can like extremely speed up your multiplication.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Can you just explain it once again? I think we have some messages saying that.
All right. Sure, I'll explain it again. Okay. So basically, what you do over here is you're supposed to brush up on your tables the first thing. Okay. 1 to 9, you have to brush up on your tables. And the first thing that you do over here is that you're supposed to multiply the ones place digits. Okay. 3 times 7, basically. 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times 7 is 21. I believe you all know this. 3 times 7 is 21. Okay. So what are you going to do? You're going to write the 1 over here, and we're going to carry forward the 2 up here. This 2, we're going to carry forward it up here. Okay. And then what you're going to do, you're going to multiply 5 and 7, which is 35. 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times 7 is 35. Okay. And 4 times 3. 4 times 3. This we have a cross multiplying basically. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 3 is 12. So you're supposed to cross multiply these two terms, and then you're supposed to add these two. So the sum of these two is 47. Okay. So 35 plus 12 is 47. And you remember this 2 that we have carried forward over here, right? Now you're supposed to carry forward it over here, and then you'll get plus 2. That will be a 49. Okay. So now this 49, there's 9. You're going to take this 9 and you're going to write it over here. Okay. And this 4 is going to be carried forward it up here. All right. So now the last step in this is you're supposed to multiply these two terms. 5 times 4. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 4 is 20. Okay. I'm very sorry for my bad handwriting. Okay. And this 4 is going to get carried forward here, plus 4. Okay. And you'll get a 24 over here. And this 24, the full number, you're going to go ahead and write it here. All right. So I'll explain this once again, one last time. Okay. 3 times 7 is 21. Okay. You're going to write the 1 over here. The 2 is going to be carried forward and up. Then you're going to do cross multiplication. 5 times 7 is 35. 4 times 3 is 12. You're going to add 35 with 12. You get 47. And this number that you've just carried forward up here, you're going to add it to this 47 number. So 47 plus 2 is 49. The second digit 9, you're going to bring it up here. And the 4 is again going to be carried forwarded. Okay. And then you're going to do 5 times 4, which is 20. 20 plus 4, again, you're going to bring this 4, you're going to add it to the 20, you'll get 24, and then you're going to write the 24 over here. So your final answer is 2491. Okay, I'll be confirming this through my calculator. Just a second. So that you know that it's correct. You guys can cross check this with your calculator if you want to. 53 times 47 is 2491. The calculation that we did is absolutely correct. So is there anyone with a further doubt in this part? Does anyone want me to explain this again? So please like message me in the chat box, like quickly, please. All right. Seeing that seeing that no one, so they're seeing, okay, I think it's clear by now. Then it's clear by now. Let's move on. Okay. So here we have a few sections from QR. For these questions, I'm going to be giving you 40 seconds. Okay. You guys can ignore the E option. We're not going to see it in the polling thing, because that is not actually the answer over here. So you can ignore the E option safely over here. But in the actual exam, E can be an option. Okay. Here, since due to the limitations of the Zoom polling system, we could not include E as an option in the poll. Okay. But I'll be giving you guys 40 seconds to answer this question, as you would have in the actual UCAT. Okay. And your time, and when your time starts, I'll say, and Mansi will open up the poll now, right? So your time starts now. Once again, open the poll. Yeah, your time starts now. 10 seconds left.
Sorry.
Yeah, you can close the poll now. All right. So all of you chose D. All of you chose the D option. That's good. Let's see what the actual answer is. All right. So the question is: TED constructed walls of two different types for a shed. The chart shows the number of bricks used per meter square and the length and height of each type per wall. Okay. So single brick per meter square is 60. Number of bricks is 60. Length is 6. Height is 6. Okay. You have the data here. So TED constructed two single brick walls and one double brick wall. What is the total number of bricks he used? Okay. So so it's given over here that per meter square. Okay, so it's given over here that each double brick wall has 120 bricks per meter square. The length of the wall is 10 centimeters and its height is 8 centimeters. Okay, so for the double brick wall, the total area is 10 times 8. That is 80 meters per 80 meter squared. Okay, 80 meters square is the area of the wall. Now, in this 80 meters per square wall, for each meter square, you have 120 bricks in the double brick wall. Okay, so you have to do 80 times 120 over here. Now, over here, one math trick that you can do is instead of doing like multiplying 120 by 80, you can just multiply 12 times 8. Okay, for this, you need no tables. Your answer here is 96. Okay, so 9,600 bricks in one double brick wall. Okay, since there are that's the number of bricks that are there in one double brick wall. Okay, and now so let's note it down. Let's note down 9,600. So there are 9,600 bricks in one double brick wall. Okay, and the single brick walls. Okay, there are two of them. So there are two single brick walls, and each single brick wall has an area of 48 meters squared because 6 times 8 is 48. Okay, and in each wall like 60 bricks per meter squared. So 48 times 60. That's what you're supposed to do here. Now you can take this here to the other side. You can do like 48 times 6, and your answer would be 288. You'll get 288 as your answer. So per single brick wall, you have like 2,880 bricks. Okay. Since there are two single brick walls, you have to multiply 2,880 by 2, and your answer would be 5,760. So you're supposed to add 5,760 over here. Okay, and your final answer would be 15,360. So that is option D, and most of you chose option D. Okay, so let's see what the final actual answer is. And the answer is D. So you guys were correct. All of you are correct. I'm very glad with this. Okay. If you see what I did over here with my multiplication, okay, I did all of it mentally. I didn't use a calculator for any of this. Okay. So the advantage of doing it like this is that you can do things a lot quicker. Okay, because opening the calculator, typing in everything, and then getting a final answer takes a little bit of time. If you can do it mentally by the time, it's all well and good. It's much easier. Okay, and it's much quicker as well. You can save a lot of time when you're doing it like this. Okay, so it's all like 1 digit, 2 digit by 1 digit. You have to use a standard method for multiplication only. There's no different like method like what I showed you for 2 digit by 2 digit and all. But this is basically how you do it. All right. So I'll be moving on to the next question now. All right. So this is another question. Again, I'll be giving you guys 40 seconds to answer this. Okay. Once again, open the poll. 3, 2, 1. Your time starts now. Yeah, 10 seconds left. Yeah, time's up. Once again,
There were no. Okay, there's just one vote. So.
Oh, guys,
keep
please,
it on for
please.
a little more.
Okay, keep it open for another 30 seconds. Guys, are you not answering it? So just it's your answers are all anonymous, right? We can't see who's responding, like who's giving what answer. So like please do go ahead and like select which option you think is the most appropriate. Don't be shy, like just go ahead and like select which option you think is the most appropriate.
Should I stop it? Actually, only 2 people have answered, but
What?
only 4 people have answered. I'm ending the poll. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine, it's fine. Okay, so this is like pretty much an even split. Like, fine. How many people answered? You said 4.
6 now.
Okay, 6 answered. Okay, fine. So okay, let's see how you go about answering this. The table shows the movie ticket prices for people of different age groups at different times and days of the week. Okay. For now, you don't need to look at this. Look at what's written here. Mr. Smith bought two senior tickets and one family pack ticket for a 3D movie on 6 p.m. At 6 on Thursday at 6 p.m. He carried 2 pairs of 3D glasses from home for the seniors and bought 3D glasses for the remaining members. What was Mr. Smith's total expense for the movie tickets and the 3D glasses? Okay. So he went on a Thursday at 6 p.m. So that's after 5 p.m. So you're supposed to be using this section over here. Okay, you're supposed to be using this section for the tickets because it's on a Thursday after 6 p.m. So it's after 5 p.m. It's all at 6 p.m. So after 5 p.m. So you're supposed to be using this. He bought 2 senior tickets and 1 family pack ticket. So 1 family pack ticket is this, and 2 senior means 730 times 2. That would be 1460 pounds. So 1460 pounds for the I'm writing it at the top left. 1460 for the seniors. Okay, and the family pack is 2650. All right. So and 3D glasses. Okay, wait. And it's a 3D movie. So for 3D movie, add £2 per adult category, 630 for family pack ticket, and 150 per others. Okay. Uh, so you're supposed to add 150 over here for each person because it's a 3D movie. So 150 times 2 would be a plus 3 over here, plus £3. Okay, and the 2650 over here, since it's a family pack, you're gonna add 630 plus 630 over here. I'll change my font color. All right. So since you have this 1460 plus 3, you'll actually get 1760. Once again, you'll get a 1760 plus 2650 plus 630. So that would be 3280. So this is just for the tickets. Okay. This price is just for the tickets. Now you're going to look at 3D glasses. So 3D glasses for 4 people. Okay. Since why 4 people? Because he got 2 tickets for the senior citizens, and for the remaining 4 people in the family pack, he's bought 3D glasses over there. So it's like 125 per 3D per pair of 3D glasses. So for 4 pairs, the cost would be £5. Okay, 125 times 4. So you're gonna add 5 over here. So by adding all of this, what you're gonna get is 1760 plus 3280 plus 5. So you will get 5540 would be your answer. So that would be option D. So option D would be the answer for this. Let's see what the actual answer is. Okay, the answer is D. So unfortunately, I could not actually find an explanation for this answer at the actual UCAT page. Okay, but then as you can see, the explanation that I just gave, that is the answer for this. Like that's how you get to that's how you get the answer to this question. If any of you want me to explain it again, I can do it again at the end. Okay, but not now. For now, I have to move on. I'm very sorry. All right, so now we're going to come to the most awaited section, at least for me personally. Okay, you guys are going to spot 5 differences over here. Okay, and you're gonna message how many differences you could find in the chat box. Okay, I'll give you 30 seconds to find this out, like to find out as many differences as you can between these 2 pictures that are given over here. Okay, it might look a little bit cheesy, but there's a reason why I'm doing this, because it has a huge link to the section that you're going to be doing next. Okay, so you have 30 seconds. The time starts now. Okay, the poll, sorry, not in the chat. Select the higher number. Select the option with the higher number. For example, if you found 4 differences, select the option with 3 to 4. That. You have 30 seconds. Yeah, time's up. Yeah. Okay, so apparently most of you could find all the differences. All right. So if you guys have been guessing what section I'm going to be doing next, your guess is probably correct. I'm going to be doing abstract reasoning. So for me personally, this was the most difficult section of the UCAT, at least initially. So let me tell you guys a small story. Okay, initially I joined the institute. So I joined an institute that helped me prepare for my UCAT. Okay, so they basically the abstract reasoning, when the time came for abstract reasoning, okay, it was only me and another girl who were in that particular batch for the UCAT. Okay, so what I personally saw was that the other girl, she could like recognize these patterns in abstract reasoning almost instantly, and like every time she would get them correct. But I used to really struggle with these patterns in abstract reasoning. You know, I couldn't. I really struggled to find the patterns in abstract reasoning. So for me, it was personally the most difficult section of the UCAT. But there is also an objective reason why it's the most difficult question, a difficult section, and that is the next point that I made over here. Yeah, 55 questions in the abstract reasoning section, but in total you have only 13 minutes for the entire section. So like you have like very little time per section, per question, and like it's really like a rapid fire thing kind of thing, rapid fire thing. Okay, so like I said, the other girl in my batch for the UCAT preparation thing, okay, she had a natural talent for it, but I really struggled with it. Okay, but in the end, if you look at my score in abstract reasoning in the UCAT, I managed to get a 750 out of 900. Okay, which is also quite a good score, not as good as what I got in QHAR or DM, but it's still a very good score. Okay, and I'll be talking to you about how, even though I was so bad in abstract reasoning initially, like in the very first mock that I wrote for QCAT, my abstract reasoning score was simply a 500 something. But in my actual UCAT, I managed to bring it up all the way to 750. So for abstract reasoning, I would say that practice is the only way forward. You have to just go on practicing, practicing, and practicing if you're not good in it. That's the only way you can go forward, and like you can tune your mind in order to recognize the patterns better. So there's one thing I need to say over here. Many of you might be wondering what's the point of abstract reasoning, even it's so difficult. I used to ask myself the same question, and then I found out, when you're in a medical setup, when you are a doctor, okay, you're going to be having patients who have like a number of symptoms, and number of diseases will have the same symptoms. Like if someone has colon cancer, they're going to be having blood in their stools. They're going to be having like a number of symptoms. They're going to be having stomach pain and all. And even a person with an ulcer or just plain acidity will also be having stomach pain. Like stomach pain is like kind of common to both of these diseases. But one, obviously, colon cancer is far more severe than just normal acidity. So in such a case, as a doctor, you're gonna have to recognize the pattern between various symptoms, and based on that, you're gonna have to be able to make the correct diagnosis on your patient, so that you can treat your patient abstractly. So abstract reasoning, where you're going to be recognizing patterns, is basically trying to assess how skilled you are in this particular section, basically. Okay, so if you're wondering why I showed you spot the differences earlier, because abstract reasoning is kind of like spot the differences but on steroids. Okay, so some major things that you're going to do is you're supposed to check for the minute details, and the questions can be mainly of 4 types. Okay, so one of the stats is like you can be given 2 sets. Okay, each of the sets will be following some particular rules. Okay, and the questions can be like either they can give you a particular image and then ask you to which set this belongs, set A, set B, or neither. Or what they can do, they can say which of these images belongs to set A or which of these images belongs to set B. And then give you 4 images and you're supposed to figure out which of these images belong to that particular set. Or what they can do, they can give you like a pattern, and you're supposed to figure out the next image in that pattern, and they can give you like 4 choices for that. And the last type is that they can give you ratio type of questions, ratio type of image questions. Okay. Um, 2 main things is that you have like approximately like 1 minute or something per pattern. Okay, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to spend the first 30 seconds analyzing the pattern that you get. Okay, and then you're supposed to spend the next 30 seconds answering all the questions that you get based on that pattern. each question is not based on a separate pattern. Each pattern has like 4 to 5 questions based on it. Okay, and like if you find out the pattern for like one particular set of images that they're given, it's pretty easy for you to like just keep going forward and like find out everything very quickly, find out all the answers very quickly. You just need to find out the pattern. It's like you build a foundation, then building the rest of the tower is quite easy. It's not that difficult. And lastly but not the least, if you cannot remember the pattern, note it on the sheet they give you and note every detail that you find in brief. All right. So we'll be going on to questions right now. I'll be giving you 30 seconds to answer this. Okay, no, since this is your first question, I'll be giving you 1 minute to answer. Okay, you guys, this question is quite easy actually. This one's again, I was able to do it initially. This one's quite easy. Okay, you guys can go ahead and start. Malsi will be opening up the poll. I'll be giving you a 1 minute timer for answering this. Okay, and your time starts. Just give me a second. The time starts now. Select the option that you guys feel is the most appropriate, guys. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's wrong. You're not going to know who you are, who's the one who's giving this option. It's all just a learning opportunity, so that you can know what to do in your actual UCAT exam. And I know this webinar is going like behind. It's going a little bit late. I'm very sorry for that. It will be over soon. Abstract reasoning is the last section of the UCAT. After this, I just have a few general tips, and then the webinar will be done. And even if you don't know the answer, guys, just select something in random, as you would in the actual UCAT, because if you don't have enough time, you're just supposed to mark and move on and like mark a random option for now, but you're supposed to like attend to it later if you have time. So like, yeah. All right, time's up. Okay, so 67% of you thought the answer is B. So let's see, D. The answer is D. Most of you thought the answer is D. Let's analyze the options and let's analyze the actual pattern over here. So look at set A. Okay, what you can see in set A is that everything begins with a black square. Okay, every image begins with a black square. Okay, this rule is common to both set A and set B. Everything starts with a black square. Okay, and what you can see in set A is that afterwards, when you have a white circle, you have a branching. Okay, like look over here. You have a white circle over here. Shit. Okay, wait. Sorry. Sorry for my language. So like as you can see over here, wherever you have a white circle, it branches into two. Over here, it branches into two like this. Okay, and wherever you have a gray circle, it continues in a straight line. Okay, this is one pattern that you can notice over here. Wherever you have like a gray circle, it continues going, and then like wherever you have a white circle, it branches up. That's one pattern for set A. Okay, and the ending it can end anywhere. It can end like in a black square and a white square. That doesn't matter. Okay, that is random. Okay, if you look at set B on the other hand, everywhere where there's a gray circle, that's where it branches. Okay, the rules like it's just vice versa. Over here, white circle means branching. Over here, gray circle means branching. Over here, gray circle means go on. Over here, white circle means go on. Okay, so that's the exact rule over here. Okay, that's basically what the rule is over here. Now let's look at the question that they've asked. The question is, which of these test shapes belongs in set A? So what are the rules of set A again? Where there's a white, everything begins with a black square. Where there's a white square, there's a branching, and where there's a gray square, it just continues on. Okay, we can immediately eliminate options B and C because they start at the white square. And white square, which is start at the white square, do not belong to either of these two sets. Because as you see, one rule that's common to both these sets is that they all begin with a black square. Okay, so options B and C can immediately be eliminated. Eliminated. Okay, now we have two options, option A and option B. Okay, look at option A first. In option A, you have a black square, then a white circle, and then a gray circle, and then the gray circle branches out. If you see, this is actually the rule of set B. In set B, you have a gray circle that branches out and a white circle that continues on. This is in fact set B. Okay, but the question asks us to find the test shape that belongs to set A. And option D perfectly follows the rules of set B. So option D will be the right answer. Let's see what the actual correct answer is now in the next slide. And the answer is D. All right. So these are the kinds of rules that you're supposed to follow, guys. Okay. Some of you might find it difficult at first, but as you keep practicing it, you'll naturally spot the patterns. There's like a number of things that you can look at over here, like shape, size, color, and there's like a number of things that you can spot, number of patterns that you can, number of different types of patterns that you can find. Where you can find these patterns like in several places. Like if you just Google it online as well, you can find that. Okay, and this is another type. Okay, so over here, what the pattern? Okay, now again, you guys had 1 minute for the first question. Here I'll be giving you 40 seconds. Okay, your time starts when 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute. Your time starts now. Yeah, now open the phone. Time starts now. If you guys cannot spot the pattern or are unable to answer the question, guys, it's perfectly fine. Okay, that's why I'm here. I'll be helping you guys find out what the pattern actually is. Okay. All right, time's up. So can you? Okay, so 36% of you have chosen set A and 64% have chosen neither. Fine, I'll be explaining the pattern here. So the pattern over here, guys, is the line of symmetry. Okay, so like this, you can have a number of patterns. The line of symmetry might have been completely unexpected to a lot of you, but basically in set A, what the rule is, this is the line of symmetry. It's line of symmetry. You can see over here. Okay, I'm marking the line of symmetry in each of these places. This is the line of symmetry in set A. Whereas in set B, the line of symmetry is vertical. It's like this. Okay, this is the line of symmetry. That is basically the pattern over here, guys. Okay, so like that's how this particular image works. Okay, so like this, you can have like a number of different things. Okay, if you guys want a complete guide on the site, Medify's website, they have like a superb guide. I think it's free as well on abstract teaching, where you can like check out the various types of patterns that you can find in the actual UCAT exam, so that you know what to actually look out for. Because over here, like this is just 1 or 2 examples. Okay, if you want to be able to recognize these patterns quickly and easily, practice is the only way ahead. Okay, so here in this particular question, particular test shape that they've given us, there is no line of symmetry. If I mark it like this, there's no symmetry. If I mark it like this, also there's no symmetry. There's no symmetry over here, so I would go ahead and say the answer here is neither. Okay, so let's see what the answer actually is. The answer is neither. The correct answer is C. So that's what I would say here, guys. You guys have to be prepared for. So here, a lot of the times the answer is neither. So you guys have to know that. Okay, you guys need to prepare yourself for the various types of patterns that you can see, and the only way you can do that is with practice. You can read guidebooks as well. You can read guides as well. And this is the last question I'm going to be showing. This is some abstract reasoning as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and again I'll be giving you 30 seconds this time. I'm slowly reducing the time that you guys are getting, so that you guys are like able to adapt to it. And time starts now. Answer the ABCD poll. Yeah. Yeah, time's up. Can you close the poll? All right. So this is like pretty big, like evenly 50-50 split between B and C. All right. So I'll be explaining this one, guys. So what you can see over here is that the colors are moving in a clockwise direction. Okay. So like white is up here, and then it's coming here, and then it's coming down, and then it's coming back up. Okay. So that's the main thing. And in the next shape, you can expect white to be in the top right, black to be in the bottom, and the shaded figure to be in the top left. So immediately we can eliminate A and D because they do not follow this pattern. Okay, because black should be in the bottom, but that's not the case in D. Okay, white should be in the top right, but that's not the case in A. Okay, only B and C follow that particular pattern. So our answer is going to be one of these. And now another pattern that you can notice here, the white shape initially it's pointing up. Okay, then it's pointing in this angle. It's like pointing 45 degrees to the right. Then it's turning another 45 degrees to the right, and then it's turning another 45 degrees to the right. The next shape we can expect that it will be pointing downwards, another 45 degrees turn to the right. Okay, So over here, comparing B and C, you can see that in B, it's looking pointing directly downwards, whereas in C, it's pointing towards the bottom left. So since it should only turn 45 degrees, over here, B is the correct answer. Okay, so B is the correct answer. It was a pretty even split, 50-50, exactly. So B is the correct answer. Let's see what the actual answer, the answer key says. The answer is B. So I hope you guys understood the explanation that I gave over there. Basically, every color is moving in a clockwise direction. Okay, and the arrow one color is turning by 45 degrees in each figure. So that's the basic pattern over there. Okay, so moving on to the okay, I'll be giving just there will be a separate webinar on the SJT. So over here, I'll be just be giving a few general tips. Okay, here are 69 questions in 23 minutes. May think that's less, but that's actually it's the only section where at least I had like plenty of breathing time. I had like at least 10 minutes towards the end of free time. Okay. If you wanted, like, what I would suggest is for the SJT is that you can read through the GMC's Good Medical Practice Guide to get a basic picture. Okay. And for answering the SJT, you're supposed to choose what you think is objectively the best answer, not subjectively. Okay. And you're supposed to think from the shoes of a doctor. You're not supposed to, you're not supposed to answer it subjectively. You're supposed to answer it objectively and how a doctor would think. If you were a doctor, what would you do in that position? That's how you're supposed to answer questions in SJT. So that's all I'll be talking about the SJT. There will be another webinar on it coming up soon. So some more general tips about the UCAT, how you can go about doing it. Okay. If you do not know the answer to the question, please do not waste time. Please just flag for review and move on. Okay. And also, if you think you don't have enough time to review the answers in the end, mark an option at random and just move on to the next question. Okay. Do not leave questions blank, because as I've mentioned in the next point, there is no negative marking. Okay, this is not like NEET or JEE exam in India where like if you write a wrong answer, you get -1 marks or something. There is no negative marking over here. So please do go ahead and mark. It's like only a 25% chance of you getting it correct if like you haven't eliminated any of the options. But 25% is still greater than 0% if you're not going to mark anything. Okay, so like just go ahead and mark if you don't know the answer and if you don't have time to come back to it in the end. Okay. And thirdly, like I said in the QR section, do work on your mental math skills. Okay. If you're used to doing all your maths with the help of a calculator, try and change that. Try and work on your mental math skills more. Like there are plenty of videos online on YouTube where you can like learn and try and improve your mental math skills so that you can reduce your dependence on the calculator. And the fourth piece of advice which I would like to give, which is arguably the most important. Okay. Most people of my age, what they do is that they sleep at like 1, 2 in the night, and then like they get up at like 10 in the morning, or like they just get up super late. Okay. One of my friends was basically asking me before the day before the UCAT exam, on the day of the UCAT exam, once I came home, you had like a life-changing exam today, and how did you manage to sleep before the exam? So one important piece of advice that I would have to give over here is that please get a good night's rest for at least 1 week before your UCAT exam. Don't care about what other people say. Okay, just give your mind the rest, give your mind the break it needs, give your mind the rest it needs. Okay, keep your mind fresh for the actual exam. Do not pull all-nighters at all like the night before the exam. Okay, you sleeping and like consolidating the information in your head is a far better way to go ahead than spending an entire day practicing UCAT questions. I'm telling you. Okay, it personally worked very well for me. Okay, I have always been a good sleeper. I always sleep at like regular hours kind of thing. Okay, so I would say that is extremely important. Okay, like just don't keep a healthy sleep schedule. Keep a healthy sleep schedule. Okay, and next start off for your practicing. Okay, for your practicing, Medify, for example, they have like nice practice questions that you can do in timed or in untimed manner as well. Okay, I suggest you go in the timed manner. Okay, they have like plenty of mini mocks for each section, and they also have like general practice questions that you can do. So if you don't do the mocks right away, first do the practice questions, okay, for each section, and then start off with untimed mocks on the UCAT, on the actual ucat.ac.uk website. Okay, so you can like there are like 4 mocks with them: mock A, mock B, mock C, mock B. So do mock A first, do it untimed, see how you do. Okay, and then later on you start practicing your questions. Okay. And then after you start practicing questions, then you move on to full length mocks, which are timed. Okay. Do not do a full time mock right off the bat. That is very detrimental. Okay. So like first you start off with questions, then you do on-time mocks, then you do more and more questions so that you can improve your performance. Okay, and only towards the end you move on to mini mocks and like full-on time mocks. Okay, and one piece of advice for verbal reasoning: try and improve your reading speed and learn techniques such as skimming. Okay, what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to spend 30 seconds just skimming quickly through the paragraph, and the remaining 1.5 minutes you're supposed to spend answering the questions. Okay, so that's one piece of verbal advice that you have to keep in your mind for verbal reasoning. Just improve your reading speed. You can do it however you want. You know, like when I was in I was in lower classes, when I was in 6th or 5th or stuff, we used to have competitions with Percy Jackson books. Who could read them the fastest? You know, like I could do it in 2 days. My friend could do it in 1 day. Another guy I knew could do it like just 3 hours. He could read like, he could finish like an entire Percy Jackson book. So like try and work on your reading speed basically. Like maybe challenge yourself. Do something. And coming to my last slide. Okay. These are some links, websites, and books that I used. I would highly recommend Medify. It is what I used from the beginning towards the end to the end. Okay, they have extremely good practice questions. Okay, they have extremely good mini mocks. They have extremely good full length mocks. They don't have on-time mocks over there, so I would suggest you use the ucat.ac website for doing on-time mocks. And also for the verbal reasoning section, I suggest you use the UCAT website itself. Okay, because the passages in Medify, they're quite small. Okay, so if you want to know my Medify mocks in verbal reasoning, I was getting like full on 850 out of 900, but I was totally unprepared for the length of the passages that were there in the actual UCAT exam. Okay, but so what I would suggest is for that verbal reasoning section alone, to use the ucat.ac website. Okay, there's also Medentry, which I haven't used personally, but I've heard a ton of feedback that it's a very good website. So you guys can go ahead and use that as well. And then there's obviously the GMC's good medical practice document, which you can use for SJT. Okay. And another thing that I used is that I used 1250 UCAT questions. There was a book like that, which was made to me by Prataprep. Okay. And there was also Kaplan's book on UCAT on the UCAT, which has like that has plenty of advice on how do you go about solving media structure questions, and especially on the abstract reasoning section. They are like different. They have like full paragraphs like each of the different types of patterns that you can find. I personally found that book very helpful along with Medify. Medify also has a ton of good guides along with the questions. So like, and they also explain each answer in detail. So these are the sites that I would highly recommend if you guys want to try and get as good of a UCAT score as possible. And now the dice is open to any and all points of information, which are questions. So if there are any questions, please do go ahead. Don't be shy. Go ahead and ask them. Mahalsi will be asking them to me, and then I'll be answering them. So yeah, Mansi, we can go ahead with the question.
Yeah. So the first question is, during the VR set, if we are not able to answer all questions, can't we take an educated guess with respect to the shortage of time?
All right. So you can take an educated guess. Okay, you're not going to be marked negatively for it at all, especially in the event that you're short on time. I would suggest certainly go ahead and take an educated guess. Okay, but in case there is time, in case you have time, certainly don't go for the policy of taking educated guesses. Okay, if you don't have time, then yeah, you can certainly go ahead and take educated guesses. That is absolutely no problem. Okay, but otherwise, like do try and read the passage first. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's it. I hope your question's answered.
Yeah, I'll say the next question if that's fine.
Yeah.
What is the general trend of questions in VR? Are the questions mostly paraphrased?
Okay. See, most of the questions that UCAT keeps for its VR are from articles and documents that you can find on the internet. Actually, it's generally on historical stuff. Like there was a lot of historical stuff for me. There was some. I remember in my particular UCAT exam, there was a particular section of the exam that was about the American Revolutionary War, like American War of Independence, and like there was something of the Revolt of 1857 I saw once as well. There's a ton of historical documents they use. There's a ton of contemporary documents they use as well. It's mainly like historical kinds of things, and so there's that. So. What is the question again? Can you explain the question? Okay. The general trend of questions is like, yeah, it is mostly paraphrased. It is mostly taken from various sites on the internet. So like, but still, that doesn't mean that you can go ahead and use your background knowledge. Okay. If you're answering a question in the VR, do go ahead and read the passage first before you answer the question.
Okay, so the next question is, how long did you prepare for the UCAT?
All right. I personally started sincere prep around 1 month before the exam. Okay, I only got my Verify subscription around 1 month before the UCAT exam. And initially things were kind of lax, but as my exam came closer and closer, I kind of upped the ante. Okay, initially I did a lot of practice in abstract reasoning, situation judgment, which was where I needed to do better. So that is basically how it went. I started, if you want an exact answer, I started my preparation around a month or a month and a half before the actual UCAT exam. If you're going to be writing the exam in August, it's still not too late. You can write it if you start your preparation now, but you have to be sincere with your prep, and you should not, like leave a lot of holes standing. Even the day before my UCAT exam, the afternoon before my UCAT exam, I was playing a video game. I was playing video games. That was how my preparation was. So if it all depends on the time that you have. If you have very little time, you've got to be extremely sincere with your time. Okay, and you're supposed to prepare extremely hard. Okay, but if you have a lot of time, and if you know that you can prepare well, okay, take your time. Okay, and give it your best. Like you're only going to be able to give the UCAT exam once a year, so like you can give it your best. Just
Next question. How long did you prepare for the UCAT?
I think I just answered that.
Oh, sorry, there were two questions of the same kind. Which all universities did you apply to?
All right. So I applied to the University of Birmingham, University of Nottingham, University of Dundee, University of Newcastle University. I applied to these four, and I got interview invites from all four of them, thanks to my exceptionally high UCAT score. What happened after the interviews is a different matter, but certainly a high UCAT score is essential for you getting an interview. Okay, most universities after the interview they only look at how you performed in the interview. Okay, they don't look at like how much your UCAT score was after your interview. So, but your UCAT score is absolutely essential if you want to get an interview invite in the first place. All right.
So this next question is something even I wanted to ask. Could you please explain how to do square roots
I'll do that
mentally?
after all the other questions. I'll do that after all the other questions. Next.
How did you track your progress while preparing, and how long did you practice per day?
All right. So my practice was mainly done on the Verify website. And they had this really useful metric where you could set a target of how many questions you wanted to do per day. Okay. And towards the time of the actual exam, I was doing like 300 to 400, 500 questions every day. Okay. So like that's how sincere you must be when you're actually doing it. Like they have a really useful, Verify have a really useful tool where they have like a calendar where you can mark when your actual UCAT exam is. And I'll also show you how many questions you've done today, how many questions you've been doing across the entire past since you have like registered with them. And like using that, you can track how much progress you've been doing, how much you have been preparing. Okay. And I was practicing for around, initially I was practicing like for 1 hour a day. As my actual UCAT exam approached, it increased like 5 to 6 hours a day. So like towards the actual UCAT exam, I was doing one mock every day, one time mock almost every other day. So like, yeah, I did spend like at least 4 to 5 hours every day practicing for the UCAT towards the time of my actual exam. Yeah.
So the next question is it fine if I have another rule that gives the correct answer? Is there a specific rule I must follow?
See, the specific rule that you follow will be the one that is decided by the UCAT examiners. Okay, you can just think up your own rules from what you see, but what you must check is that is it applicable to every figure that you see in the set? Are there any exceptions? If there is an exception, then your rule is probably false. And if you use that rule to find your answer, it is probably not going to work out well for you. Okay. If there are no exceptions to the rule that you have found out, okay, then that rule is probably the correct rule anyway. So there is no such thing as inventing your own rules for the question. You have to either you find out the correct rule, okay, which has no exceptions at all, okay, but you cannot just make up your own rules on the spot, okay. If you do, and if it happens to be following that rule without any exceptions, then maybe that is actually the correct rule that you have found out, and like you can go ahead and like use that rule.
Okay, so this is the last question before we continue with the square root question. So it is, along with a lot of practice, was there anything else that helped you improve your AR score?
All right. So along with a lot of practice, I would say the Medify website itself had like a lot of helpful videos that show you like what you can do to like prepare for the abstract reasoning. There are a ton of criteria that you can like there's like symmetry, you can look for symmetry, shape, size, color, and like there's so many actually. If you follow these criteria, right, you can like get to the you can find the answer pretty easily. Another thing that I would suggest is that I use the Kaplan book for UCAT preparation. Okay, the Kaplan book for it has like different kinds of patterns, different kinds of rules for like different kinds of things, and like it gives you an idea basically of what all like you can find out, what all you can do basically, So in that way, I found the Kaplan book very, very helpful. Like that helped me figure out what kind of patterns I could find out. And then the practice helped me refine and hone my tactics so that I know that this is the pattern I'm looking out for over here. And one more thing about abstract reasoning is that sometimes the patterns can be really simple. Like, for example, in set A, you can have a very simple pattern like you have only odd numbers in set A, like you have an odd number of figures in set A, like you have an even number of figures in set B. Like that can be one. And several times the sets can have like a little more, they can have like 2 rules or 3 rules. You have to figure out each of those rules. Only then you can like correctly match things up. Otherwise, like it can be a little bit of a mess up. All right. I don't think there are any more questions other than the square roots one.
Just one last question, which is the square root question.
All right. Okay. So I'll be going ahead with the square root question now. So pick a number. Fancy, just pick any number, random number.
Random?
Yeah.
How many digits? 2?
Any.
Okay, 569.
569. Okay. So the number I've been given is 569. Okay. 569. Okay. However, what I'm going to do with this number right now is that I'm going to take the numbers, digits in groups of 2. Okay. So 69 in a group of 2 and 5 1 alone. Okay. Because it's a 3-digit number, there is an odd number here, 5. Okay. You guys understand that, I suppose. You're supposed to take it in groups of 2 from the right side. Okay. And if there's an odd number out, you're supposed to take it alone. You're not supposed to take 3 numbers together. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 5. What is the nearest square to 5? Square number to 5? The answer is 4. Okay. So because 2 square is 4, so I'm going to write 2 over here. And 2 square is 4. I'm going to be writing 4 here. Okay. So what I'm going to be doing over here is 169. Okay. And I'm going to be writing this 2 up here as well. Okay. Now, next step. Okay. You have a 169 over here. Now, what you must do with this 2 is, what you're supposed to do with this 2 is, you're supposed to take this 2 down here. So multiply this 2 with 2, you're going to get a 4. This might be a little bit complicated, okay? Guys, just hear me out, okay? So now we have a 4 over here. You're taking this 2 over here basically into 2. Right, I'll show it here. Into 2, okay? Now, what you're going to do is, you're going to take another number to the right side of 4, such that that number, like see, for example, I'll give you an example. If I take a 0, I would do 40 times 0, which is 0, and I write 0 here. Okay. If I were to take 41, I would do 41 times 1, which would be 41, and then I would be subtracting 41 from here. Okay. I'm supposed to take a number like that, which is less than 169. If I take 42, for example, I would be writing 84. Okay. But 84 is not what we want here. I'm going to take 43 now. Okay. I'm supposed to do 43 times 3. 43 times 3 would be 129. 129. That's what I'm going to write over here. Okay. And I'm going to write 40. Okay. And I'm going to take 2 more zeros on the right since we want like a few decimal places. I'll just give it a few decimal places. Okay. And this 3 that we've written here, right? I'm going to write 3 here. Okay. This 3 is going to come here. All right. And now, since you're going to take 2 extra zeros, okay, I'm going to be putting a decimal point over here. Whenever you take zeros to the right side, you're supposed to add a decimal point. Okay. So this 0, these 2 zeros, I'm going to move it down. Okay. You're going to get a 4,000 over here. Okay. Now this 23, this full number that you have over here, I'm going to take it down here again. Okay. I'm going to take it down here and I'm going to multiply it to 2 again. Multiply the 2 and I'm going to get 46. Okay. Now what I must do 46, 460 something into that last number. Okay. Will give me a number that's below 4,000. For example, if I put a 1 over here, I write 461. If I write it 2, I have to write 461. I write 461 into 1. If I write it 2 over here, I'll do 462 into 2. If I write it 3, I'll write 463 into 3. 4, 464 into 4. Over here, I'm going to take an 8. 468 into 8. Okay. So what is 468 into 8? We'll get a weight. I'll just calculate it quickly. For this, you can use the calculator actually. Yeah, this is the answer you're getting, 3754. Okay. And you're going to write this 8, that 8 that you took, right? You're going to write that 8 over here. So the square root of 569 is 23.8. All right. So that is how we find the square root of a number. If any of you need me to explain this method again, do ask in the chat. I'll do it again. Mansi, do you think this method is clear? This method that I've explained over here?
I think it's clear. No one really messaged, and it's clear for me as well. So I think it's clear.
It's
I
clear,
don't see
right?
any messages. Yeah.
Okay, fine. 1 minute. Just give me a second.
Yeah.
Share.
So that's all with the questions, right?
That's all the questions.
Okay, so thank you so very much, Vardhan, for this extremely helpful webinar. Were you saying something?
No. My own thank you, sir.
So, as you know, I will be taking the UCAT examination next year, but all of this information really did help me gain a very knowledgeable insight on, the different UCAT tips and tricks. And I think I will be able to do better now. And all those questions and all of these mental metrics really did help me. Thank you so much for that. And if anyone would like to revisit this webinar, then you can do so by visiting Virtual Math Society's YouTube channel, which is very new. We will be uploading a recording of this webinar. And furthermore, if you have any further questions, DM us on Instagram or send us an email. And if Vardhan is okay with it, we'll pass on the questions to him and he'll be happy to answer, I guess, right? Make sure
I'll be happy to answer.
Make sure to register for our next webinar.
If any of you want to ask me personally, that's fine as well. Shall I give my Instagram tag or something?
Yeah, put it on the chat.
Yeah. So you guys can message my Instagram handle, so like I can find out. I can like reply to any questions that you have. I've sent my tag in the thing, the all panelists in attendance thing.
And just don't forget, there is one more session which is on the 5th August. It's on SJT. I'll put the link again, and you can register for it.
Someone's asking me to repeat it with another number, the square root thing.
Oh, they just put the questions. So I think we're running short of time. Maybe
very shy. I need to go.
Yeah, maybe we could do it. Maybe you could text Vardhan on his Instagram, and he'll explain that to you. Yeah. Thanks again, Vardhan. Have a nice day, everyone, and thank you so much for joining.
Thank you all for attending this webinar. If you can see, I've written thank you in since you're all planning for UCAT and the UK. I've written thank you in like the 4 different languages that are spoken in the British Isles. There's English, there's Welsh, there's Scots Gaelic and Irish. So thanks to all of you for attending this webinar. I hope you guys are able to take something useful out of it. If you have any doubts, please do go ahead and message my Instagram handle. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. So that's it. Yeah.
Thank you.